to news updates on Today Ghana News TV. We are live on the satellite via Twitch for our viewers in Eastern European countries and also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Today Ghana News TV. We are also on anchor.fm/podcast at Today Ghana News TV. Now, the headlines. The Nabi Foundation puts smiles on faces of Wasa, Amanshia, and Esukasi Echere. The people of Yave held a special program to celebrate their ancestors. We have these and other stories coming your way. My name is Edna Sagonya. To our first story, the chiefs, queen mothers, and people of Yave traditional area in the Southern district has held a special program to celebrate and remember their ancestors for securing a home for them. The program, which was geared towards giving respect to the ancestors, brought people from all walks of life to witness the historical journey of their predecessors. Dinah Selassie, Today Ghana News TV, Volta Regional Correspondent, has the full story on this.
The chiefs, queen mothers, and people of Fievie traditional area over the weekend held a special program to celebrate and remember all their ancestors and their toils they have gone through in order to secure their current home Fievie. For this reason, all descendants of Amega Ahache deemed fit to remember their ancestors in a very colorful ceremony among beautiful cultural displays and dance from both the young and old. We can all vividly attest to the fact that culture is the way a group of people live in their community. Mama Ku Agbi, the second queen mother from Fievie, who spoke to Today Ghana News TV on the need for the celebration, has this to say.
The descendants of Amega Ahache wants to celebrate their great-great-grandfather and all the ancestors for keeping them, bringing them up here, and for looking after them all this year. Ayo, nabe
So, what's your general view about the program today? How did you see it?
Seriously, this has not been properly organized, as somebody would say. But I tell you, it's a great thing, and we are going to improve upon it, and it will be in a grand style next year. God willing.
So you are planning to do it every year?
Sure. But every other year from today, we will celebrate it.
In a related development, speaking to the media, Togbe Achiga Soga II also threw more light on their ancestral journey from Anau Zuma, which is called Benin, to their current home, Fievie.
Dukogbanto ikeva amutofisia wogo kenti le elumebe go kenti a amesamenya je Fievie so bakapele dukogbanto ikeva go kenti afi choto duko kata wo ide go keme ikenya so pete ple bume foju a egbemi le nkudo mi togbe o ike plomi to keke Anau Zuma vato egbedi menye edie emole afera atoro egbedadapo enlawadao edao benume o plomi buvado anyigba eji edie milankudo oji menye be edonku togbe oji kwa pe on to ha menya do pe o ala venemi solima ni bo bene to be ganga Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Mi po ha da ke mi sebe wonye me to be mi ti bu bonti be flagba. Ka to be so gaye me pe me jesi. To be nya kalo ko to ba pope. To be nya gato, to be nya atakli. Ike agbanagbeto rito ike me po me jesi o. Me mo de bonti o de kan me na no mi to mo.
Reporting for Today Ghana News TV, I am Diana Salasi Tete, Volta region.
President Akufo-Addo is 1 year into his second term as president under the Fourth Republic. There's mixed feelings about his first year and second term. To help us analyze the social, political, economic situation is Dr. Sekou NKrumah. Joining us live from Arizona, USA is Dr. Sekou NKrumah, the former CEO of National Youth Authority. He is also the last son of the first president of Ghana, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Welcome to News Update on Today Ghana News TV.
Yeah, good evening, and I'm glad to be with you. Did you hear me?
Hello. Welcome
to
Today Ghana News. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, that's good. President Akufo-Addo began. Okay, President Akufo-Addo began his second four-year term on January 2021. It started with a dramatic event in Parliament with the election of the Speaker of Parliament. What is your assessment from then?
Well, I mean, not to be so specific, I think I'm more interested in looking at the MPP and the NDC because those are the two dominant political parties that have emerged since 1992, since we embraced the democracy and the multi-party system. It's interesting that each have been given 8 years and then we changed them. So when you were talking about Nana Akufo-Addo's first 4 years, yes, most Ghanaians will see it as too short a term to really see whether he has impressed, is doing a good job or not. So basically, we tend to give them another 4 years, so 8 generally. I think this going into his second term, I think that's when people will be obviously more critical. And to me, I think both MPP and NDC have not really impressed. But I would like to really look at where they're coming from. On the NDC side, you could see that when we lifted the ban on party politics in 1992, the PNDC transformed into the NDC. So basically, it was what former President Rawlings represented from June 4, December 31st, and his followers, those who wanted to continue with that revolutionary era period and doing things in a certain way. Now, the main opposition became the MPP, and the MPP traces its roots to the United Party, those who were in opposition to Nkrumah way back in the 50s and 60s. Unfortunately, because the opposition to Rawlings could not form one solid group, the MPP took over as the main opposition party. And as you noticed, then the divided Nkrumah's front or parties didn't give it that opportunity to create a third force. So basically, we got stuck with NDC and MPP. And obviously, like most countries, one is on the left of politics, the other is on the right. So you have the MPP on the right, NDC on the left. But I don't think they really understood where the position Ghana finds itself from 92 till today. So I like to go back all the way to the independence struggle. And you realize that we took off very strongly, and under the leadership of Nkrumah, he was able to do so much because he understood. He led at some point, led the independence struggle and succeeded. But why he was so successful in building Ghana and making Ghana take that strong step forward is because he understood the Pan-African agenda. First, he understood that we need to liberate Ghana and Africa, and then he understood that we need to unite as a continent to be stronger, to face the Western exploitation and interest in our continent. Of course, Nkrumah was overthrown. So yes, we had our independence. Africa got decolonized, but the unity became a mirage, sort of. Now, when you fast forward to our time, you realize that both MPP and NDC have been in government, given enough time, the 8 years I was talking about earlier, but there was no real impact on the ordinary Ghanaian.
Yeah.
And then the country has and so on. We depend too much on outside world assistance and all that. So, and of course, when you add into the mix the corruption as well as the incompetence that seems to engulf these two parties, now you start thinking of, can we have a third force that can really take us to a better position? Now, that, to be realistic, I don't think a third force can emerge before 2024 to capture power in 2024 elections. So that will be a long-term thing. I think the young people in Ghana who are realizing that MPP and NDC have disappointed, have been given enough opportunity, but have disappointed. I think they need to now group or regroup and then organize themselves and build that force. Those of us who were involved in Ghanaian politics in the past are getting old. I am, if I take myself an example, I'm 2 years shy of 60. So I think it's more the young people who should take up their responsibility of leadership and forming that third force. But again, as I was saying, that third force will have to understand what Nkrumah talked about, new colonialism, that he coined that phrase, new colonialism, which is basically that we are independent, but we still are being exploited by the former colonial masters or the Western interest, America and Western Europe and so on. So we need to be able to confront them and say that enough is enough. Africa, we have to be responsible for the destiny of Africa. We have to take charge of the resources, the very rich resources Africa has. I mean, across the continent, Africa is very rich in terms of natural resources and so on. And even with the human resource, I don't think we are doing that badly. But just a question of having those resources to be able to feed our people, to be able to use it to develop. You see, sometimes those of us who are living outside, when you look at the infrastructure, I've had the opportunity to teach in what you call high school and middle school in the US, which is basically secondary school. And when I compare these schools, okay, I taught in public schools or teach in public schools. Now, when you compare to schools in Ghana, you realize that when you look at the teachers, they're basically the same. Ghanaian teachers are as good as the teachers in the US. When you look at the students are as brilliant as the students in the US, or at least the brilliant students among them. So the problem is really the infrastructure. We don't have the money, the resources to put into developing our country. That's basically the problem. And what it means is that those resources that we have, that God has gifted us with on our land, is being exploited and taken away to develop other countries. And whether it's Europe, America, or you name it. So the point is that we as Africans have to realize that the time is for us to address or confront this situation. We can't pretend that it doesn't exist, because it does, and that has been our problem. Nkrumah was overthrown because of this very reason, because he was trying to shift the responsibility to Africans and then for us to be able to control those resources. But of course, Nkrumah also understood that you cannot do that alone. Ghana is too small, so Ghana has to work with other African countries, and that's where the second stage of the Pan-African agenda was continental union. But of course, they wouldn't allow that to happen. So it is for young people now to realize that these are the facts. We can be competing or thinking of NDC, MPP, but it's not going to take us anywhere. The point is that we need collectively to realize that as Ghanaians, as Africans, we need to control those resources. And once we control those resources, we'll be able to invest in our people and in our country. And because it takes money to build infrastructure and all that. You can't do that by borrowing money from elsewhere. It doesn't work out that way because you become dependent on that person who's is giving you the money and he controls you. But the point is that once we are rich, our land is rich, we should be able to take control of those resources. And that's what I think the problem is with Ghana and Africa. So we can be shouting the whole day that, oh, it's NDC or MPP, or I prefer MPP, I prefer NDC, but no change. I had a personal example when I joined NDC in 2007. And I thought with the new leadership, the former president, Professor Tamils, that he'll bring something new to the NDC. I understood at that time that the competition was between NDC and MPP. And I related more to the NDC because of the tradition, more or less, NDC had captured the CPP front or the NKrumah's front, those who are left of Ghanaian politics. And I saw Professor Mills as somebody who could move NDC to a different level. But unfortunately, what happened was realized that he was overwhelmed, and there were issues, of course, of ill health and all that. But basically, I think he could not really take the bull by the horn and transform the NDC to a party, a real progressive party. So again, what happened was that it was same thing, being in government and not really addressing the problems, not coming with policies that will really affect our people in a positive way. But basically, again, you realize that because we are not control of our resources, then even if you have that perfect leader and that perfect situation, you still cannot take the country forward. So in the case of Akufo-Addo, as you're saying, yes, his second term is doing his second term, but nothing much or nothing concrete will come out of it because of the very reasons I was trying to explain earlier.
Okay, so what is your opinion on the current happenings in Parliament, and how significant will it be to enhance our democracy?
Oh, I mean, once we have embraced this system of democracy, then we are stuck with it. I mean, yes, you have those challenges. I mean, in Parliament, sometimes there are differences, tempers flare, and people, but it has happened elsewhere. I mean, Ghana is not unique. So I don't think that's a big deal. Of course, it's not something that we want to be seen often and so on. It's interesting that the Speaker is an NDC, a well-known or respected NDC member. But he's I think, a fit for the job. I think I'm personally. In fact, I remember when I joined the NDC in 2007, and I was introduced the first time to the public, I had written a statement, and it was the speaker, the current speaker, who actually asked me to have a look at it, and looked at it, and I think he made just one slight correction. So I think he's a man of depth, and he can do his job. But again, you could see with the very experienced parliamentarians we have on both sides, MPP and NDC. But as I said, the problem is a lot more complicated than that. We can have all the competent people in charge of leadership position and so on. But the problem is that if we don't confront what really our problem is in Ghana and Africa, we'll not be able to transform our country. And the whole issue is that I think we need to the book that NKrumah wrote on neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, is something that is a must read for students of African politics and history, so that it can guide us moving forward. Of course, that was written way back. It doesn't mean that we don't have academics and intellectuals who can develop further on those ideas. So, but the key word should be new colonialism. That's something we need to confront. And I think young people have to become aware of this situation that is affecting Africa's progress.
Yeah. Okay. Corruption was major during the 2020 campaign. Do you think the president is bold in fighting corruption? And how will you rate him?
Well, I've also known President Akufo-Addo personally way back in somewhere in 1990. A friend of mine took me to his office, his law office of firm. Yes, he comes through as somebody who is who's willing to fight corruption and all that. But again, I think it looks like our leaders become overwhelmed. An example of Professor Mills, who became overwhelmed with the position. And it looks like Akufo-Addo is as well in the same position. The thing is that it's a problem, but the problem with, I mean, we need to sometimes, I mean, that's how we had the revolution or the June 4. It was, the whole idea was to fight corruption and wipe it completely out of our society. Then we referred to it as Kalabuli and all that. But you saw that even the strong-handed approach by Rawlings, former President Rawlings, the Buga way of doing politics, also maybe worked out for a while, but again, the society after 30, 40 years, we reverse back to the normal way. And that is bound to happen because of the poverty in our society and the need, the desperate need a lot of people find themselves in. But I would say, I'm sure there's corruption everywhere, in the West, in America, in Europe, and all that. So the point is that, yes, it's something we need to address. But I keep on hammering the point that if you don't have the resources, if you don't have basically the money, you cannot build infrastructure, sufficient infrastructure, and you can't move the society forward. I've always said that when I compare living now in America, when I compare to back home, the only difference is that there's money here to invest in infrastructure and build the society. There's no money there. And this is not about even the economic system, whether it's capitalism, socialism, and so on. No, we can even look beyond that. It's just a question of having, once you have that money, then you can invest and build. And I'm saying that I'm repeating myself, but the point is that Africa is very rich. So there's no need for us to be poor. So we need to find a way of capturing those resources that belong to us and developing it and invest in our people. So once we control those resources, Africa's destiny will change. So that looking beyond corruption and incompetence in government and all that, because these are problems, but the bigger problem is really that we don't have control of our resources to feed our country and our people.
Okay. So in your own opinion, do you think this government is managing the economy well?
They don't seem to be doing a very good job, but that's why I said that by my estimation, there will be a change of government in 2024, and it goes back to NDC because that's the only other option for us. But I'm saying we should be tired of playing that ping pong between NDC and MPP because it's really the same thing. Yes, maybe they change a different leader and so on, a different group of people, but they can really change the system. And I'm saying we need to look beyond that. So I think two fronts we need to fight on. That is creating a third force to offset this NDC MPP politics. But that's again in the long term. It can happen immediately. And also collectively as Ghanaians, MPP, NDC, third force, or whatever you want to call it, we need to think of confronting Western interests that have exploited Africa for so many years and continues to exploit it. If we can't confront that problem, we'll just be running around in circles and will not be able to move forward. Yes, there will be slight development in terms of infrastructure and so on, but basically we'll be far away from the target we want to reach.
Okay. Do you think the democracy and freedom of speech in Ghana is missing under the Akufo-Addo's government?
No, I think since 1992, we have embraced democracy from Rawlings, from Kufuor, Professor Mills, John Mahama, Akufo-Addo. Now, I think we're on track in terms of democracy. Some of us grew up, we understood the importance of democracy. I even had the, privilege of studying in Eastern Europe in the 80s. So I understood how an oppressive system is. I think also when you look at NKrumah's mistakes in the early 50s and 60s, you would relate it to issues of human rights, like the introduction of the PDA, I think was not a good idea. The introduction of the one-party state that shut the door on opposing views. I think those were wrong. But we've learned from those mistakes, so we've embraced democracy. And democracy is only practiced through a multi-party system of democracy. So I think we are doing fine in terms of democracy and respect for that. Again, government might fall short, but it takes civil society, ordinary Ghanaians, and so on to put pressure. And I think we've been doing that. Free media, look at how the media has developed since the early 1990s. Again, I was fortunate to be engaged in the independent media and contributed to it, as well as even the state media. I had columns as well in the Ghanaian Times and so on, as well as some of these independent newspapers. So the media has done a great job also putting government under pressure. I think civil society is doing the same and so on. So I think we're doing fine as a nation when it comes to democracy and developing. And we've said goodbye to coup d'etats and all that. So you could see that we've made some progress in certain areas. But I keep on going back to my concern with the economy and how Ghana should go, and Africa. We can also think as Ghana individually. We have to think of Africa as well. So the Continental Union is something that we need leaders who are able to champion their cause. And it's the young people now, again, they have to understand that this is the only way to go forward. Continental Union, Africans coming together, working together to build economy. This beautiful continent we have, that very rich continent we have, we shouldn't be described as poor and looked down upon by other people when we have all that it takes. It's just a question of knowing where who the enemy is, how to pick our battles, and how to move forward.
Okay, so what are your thoughts about the performances of the opposition political parties, especially the NDC? Are they up to the attacks, especially in parliament?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's only NDC who's in opposition. I mean, really, the main opposition party, dominant one. So if NDC is in power, then MPP is the main opposition. If MPP is in power, then NDC is the main opposition. And I think they do quite a good job in attacking each other and putting each other on their toes. So yes, I would say they do a pretty good job there. But I'm saying that we need at some point to look beyond that, because that can be also a bit destructive and not really uniting us as a people. Because you could also see that this whole idea of that sharp divide, MPP, NDC, has also split Ghanaians onto two fronts, and we sometimes pick fights that we don't need instead of rather coming together and work together. So when people suggest, for example, national policies that will guide each or whichever party is in power, I think we need to work together on those lines then, that this is what we need to move the country forward. And but that can only be done if we understand what really our problem is. Because, and that's why I will keep hammering it, is the exploitation from the outside world. If we collectively work on that, MPP, NDC, third force or whatever, I think then we will be making headway. So beyond the differences we have between NDC and MPP, one in power, one in opposition, at a particular point, I think we need to address the issue of what really is stopping us, holding us back from developing and being first among equals when it comes to everything on the world stage. I think nothing really, we are not inferior in any way. We have and building capacity, but building capacity requires also investment and money. And I think that is where the problem is. You can't have somebody taking your resources away from you and you expect to develop. It doesn't work that way. You need to control those resources.
Okay. So what do you think we can do to develop Ghana?
That's what I'm saying. I think for us to understand, and I think it's important for the young generation to understand what they need to do, because the older generation is phasing out, and in energy and drive they don't have. So the younger generation has the energy, has the drive, but the older generation can feed them with the knowledge. So we have to collectively understand that we can't do it by ourselves as Ghanaians. We need to work with other African countries collectively to build our continent. And again, we need to realize that those resources that are exploited need to be brought to be used by us. And I'm not saying that's easy, but we have to find a way of confronting this situation. And I'm not saying that it's not going to be a long struggle. Independence was a long struggle. It didn't just happen in a day or two. So everything in life, I mean, you have to struggle for it and so on. As I say, the good things don't come easy. So it is the way forward will be for us to become aware and our people to understand that this is the vision we need to have for Ghana and Africa. And once we get that right, then it's collectively working together to secure those resources, secure the riches of our continent, to feed our people and develop our continent to be comparable to any continent or any country across the world.
Okay, so what do you think about the CPP, the political party founded by your late father, and what can be done to position it as an alternative?
Well, the reality is that Nkrumah used the CPP as his political vehicle then when he broke away from the UGCC. It's a different story now. A lot has happened. And as I was saying, you could see from June 4, emergence of Rawlings, he also overthrew the offshoot of the CPP, PNP, under the leadership of Dr. Hilary Mann, the late Dr. Hilary Mann. So you could see that a lot has changed and happened. So calling for a CPP now, I think, is not very realistic. NDC more or less captured that constituency. Most people in the NDC are naturally Nkrumahist or CPPist, if you want to call it that way. So it's rather, I would say, a third force. You remember earlier I was saying that when PNDC transformed into NDC, what the opposition should have done then was form a united front, not going back to UP, CPP and all that. But the old guys, some of us who were young then, in our 20s, we tried to argue that case, but the old guys, Professor Dubois and so on, did not see eye to eye with us. And then they realized that, no, they want to go back and form the old traditional parties. So going back to the Dankwa Buzia tradition, going back to the Nkrumah tradition and so on. And what happened was that still it had to be one main opposition, and that became the MPP. So the MPP captured not only people who felt linked to the Dankwa Buzia tradition, but also or people who are more on the right of Ghanaian politics, but people who did not like Rawlings for whatever reason, did not like the PNDC revolutionary era and all that. So they became MPP. So it's what will guide you is not, I mean, we learn from the past, but it's the present and what has happened in the past that should guide us moving forward. So a call for the CPP is not realistic. And what I think we should be calling for is a third force. A third force, we are tied between NDC and MPP, then we should create a third. Sorry, my battery is running.
Cool.
Sorry. Okay. I hope it doesn't run out.
Okay.
I'm using my phone. So I think it's not a question of CPP. I think it's more of a third force. We should be forming a third force.
Okay, so Doctor, before you take leave of us, do you see hope or despair for Ghana as we start a new year?
I beg your pardon, I didn't catch your question.
I said, before you take leave of us, do you see hope or despair for Ghana as we start a new year?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said earlier.
Okay.
I heard the
Is there hope?
Yeah, but I didn't hear.
Is there hope for Ghana's economy as we are starting a new year?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's just a question of the hope is being realistic and understanding our situation and knowing how to address it. It's just like an individual. If you think your life is not going the way you want it to go, it's for you to sit back and then reflect on why the wrong decisions you took, why your life is not going the way you want it to, and boldly address that situation to be able to move forward. Sometimes it's difficult. You have to bite the bullet, but that's the only way to improve your life as an individual and as a nation to improve our lives. So at some point, we need to be realistic our situation, find ourselves, and then confront that challenge.
Okay. Thank you for speaking to us, and you have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
That was Dr. Sekou NKrumah. Moving forward, Nanabi Foundation has taken extra steps to give provisions and clothes to people in Wassa Amanshia in the Western region and Esukesi Inshra in the Central region as part of their social responsibilities and giving to the less privileged and the people on the street. Report by our Central Regional Correspondent, Wafa Sami.
Nanabi Foundation puts smiles on faces of Wassa Amanshia and Esukesi Inshra. As part of our social responsibilities in giving to the less privileged and plebeians on the street, Nanabi Foundation has taken steps to give provisions and clothes to people in Wassa Amanshia in the Western region and Esukesi Inshra in the Central region. Speaking to Wafasame, Today Ghana News TV Central Region correspondent, Nana Benyin, CEO of Nanabi Foundation, added that it's part of their obligation to put smile on faces, especially on Xmas occasions and any other special day. He explained that the rate at which poverty is on the rise in this country is beyond the horizon of understanding, and he is making compassionate appeals to the government, philanthropists, individuals and corporate institutions to come to his aid to support the less privileged ones in our various societies. He further added that it is our moral and social responsibility to give to the poor, and we don't need to wait till special occasions before we reach out to them. He also stressed that the tool for sustainable development in every country is education, so we should need to support those children on the street to get education. Speaking to the beneficiaries, they expressed their gratitude to the foundation for even driving from Cape Coast to give them these foodstuffs. Let's collectively support those children on the streets to help them feel the weight of their destiny.
Madama say, Mama catch a wine day, Yamin Shraho, and show one Shraho, Brodo. Well, I do ye, no way we more than 1 year in my warrior. No, so Madakuma Pamdaju and Yami. Damas, Yamin Shraho, Yamin Shra be an edge, be a Yamima, on young the Pama. On one, now, above all the baby, no young cordon, Connery. Yamin Shraho, Madamasa, all said. I share the foundation there. Foundation there is a Fisubia, a woman be Janka, maybe small, everything we're doing, and a memory. A Olympus Eba, or one several people so, Nabanado ye. Till they are giving back to society, who push travel, or say so many so omnibus, not omniji, intina, and no you, maybe I say Adama, Business say.
Okay, as we celebrated the Christmas, Today Ghana News TV reporter Wafasami was present in the principal street of the Cape Coast, where groups of masqueraders came out to display their dance and skills to the general public. We saw prominent personalities in the costume and they shared their thoughts for joining the group.
I shall force in yet for 10 day. I feel a walk on a wabot. I feel will soon be in your piano and to the Uncle Shadow. Men, Quana was in with the ma. Oh, there a Quinibiado. Ever wasn't ever when you are not an Yamiasi. Every year when they wouldn't be asking Sabotism. Yabaji, and you are. I'm a phone albums, Uncle Pride, or that's a hand. Now the phone nearby has not made the same thing. And so I feel change anything will be a Ghana for years will be always in there. Supreme. Show them. So, Kwan Canon Nanche, you pay for no one to fancy dress as it. When you don't want now, one more boy will ask him and what you want to join the fancy dress. In that answer them, I had thought Otumo, you put the same down or did too much when you are. So the mafia, sir, not there, fancy dress was what to watch Ghana for the war into Yakubo. I say, they or they Smith have really used him.
Okay, so that will be it for tonight. But before I go, I'll pick some of the messages from Facebook. From Wafasami, we miss you, Edna. Afisha Pao. Afi come back to you, Wafasami. From Joyce Amwa, watching live from Mankasim. We miss you guys. Thank you, Joyce. We miss you too. From Patience Darko, Happy New Year, Edna. This is my first time of seeing the son of our founder of Ghana. Oh, okay, thank you. From Sekou Adi, wow, good to see the son of Dr. Kwame NKrumah. Edna, you are doing well. I'm watching live from Amsterdam, Holland. Thank you. Sweet Mother Tete, good evening. Good evening. From Selassie, Dinah Tete, watching live from Sugakope. Thank you, Selassie. From Nancy Safo, Ya Asantiwa is here. Okay, so that will be it. My name is Edna Sagbanya, and thanks for watching. You can follow us on all our social media handles, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Today Ghana News TV. You can send us your stories and comments through our mail at todayGhanaNewsTV@gmail.com. Thank you.
What we say, youth man, before you make up your mind, think before you take up your nine. We say the hottest part of date and who did, who you did left behind. What we say, youth man, yeah man, this is your side, the soldier and the warrior represented for Today Ghana News TV. It's the best web TV across the continent of Africa. They transmit via satellites and all their social media platforms for your best developmental news, social programs, empowerment, entertainment, sports, and for the best educative political discussion. Today, Ghana News TV, 24/7 online TV. I aside the soldier and the warrior. Blessings.